Today, we're really excited to be joined by Dr. Sangeeta Mahajan, who will be talking to us about how to stay mentally healthy while at university. Sangeeta is a mental health activist and educator who is committed to reducing young suicide by raising awareness and reducing stigma, and is also a trustee for the National Charity of Prevention of Young Suicide.
Hello, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you for coming. And I am Sangeeta. As you can tell from my gray hair, I was at university a very, very long time ago. And it was another country, another era altogether. So a lot of things that I will be talking about, I have learned some in hindsight and some from my students. As I'm a doctor and at a large teaching hospital in central London, which is Guy's and St. Thomas's. I work as an anaesthetist and I look after many undergraduate and postgraduate students. And also I speak to you as a mother of a young man who went to Durham University, actually. So yeah, so that's me. And these are rather interesting times, aren't they, with COVID thrown into the mix. University is an exciting time, and it is, of course, it gives rise to a whole mixed bag of feelings and huge challenges in a sense. So today's focus is mainly on how to keep yourself well, how to look after yourself. When you go into university. I'm not sure if this would be the first time you would be going, or are you returning to second year or third year? I'm not sure, but whatever it is, I hope that you find something useful in this talk that's applicable to you. So the objective of okay. So I've set 3 objectives for this talk, which is understanding adolescence. You know, and adolescence is much misunderstood in our community. In fact, we are quite ignorant about it. Even the adolescents don't know enough about adolescence. So a little bit about that, a little bit about change. You know, there's so much change at this time. Now with COVID, there's even more change, yes, and loss. So we'll talk a bit about that and how we cope with all of this. So the human brain is a very complex, very delicate organ, extremely delicate. And the one area that we want to focus on when we talk about adolescence is the frontal and prefrontal cortex, which is the one on top in yellow, which is the one that takes up about 30% of the brain's volume. So what adolescence is, it's a pre-programmed event which lasts from the age of 10 till about 25. And there is a reason for it. It is designed, the structure and the function of the brain is designed to help the young person move away from the family home and establish an independent identity in the community. That is the purpose. Actually, nature has designed the brain in a way that young people get enough courage and motivation to make decisions and move away from home and establish their place in the world. And it is really interesting, this prefrontal cortex, because this is where complex decisions are made. This is where the personality develops, where morality and ethics and empathy and these kind of delicate and higher functions reside. But the thing is that this part of the brain is very poorly developed in adolescence. It takes up to the age of about 25 till it's fully developed. And that is why many adolescents, one of the traits of adolescence is that they have a thought and they act on it. It's a direct link between thought and action. Whereas the adult brain, after 25 years of age, you have a thought, then you weigh the pros and cons, take a pause, think about it, and then act. And that ability comes with time, because of which there is more impulsivity in younger people. It is not that they're being difficult, it is just how it is. And therefore, some important decisions can be taken in a hurry. And it's good for us to know that about ourselves so that we can remember it at times when we are taking important decisions and remind ourselves that actually, maybe I'm acting in haste, maybe I need to take a pause here. So that is the structure of the brain in terms of the frontal cortex, which is underdeveloped in adolescence. So, and the function of the brain, as I said, is very delicate, highly dependent on neurochemicals. And these are two of the very important neurochemicals that operate during adolescence. So what does dopamine do? Dopamine brings up the nerve brain cells up to a point of excitement, up to the point of firing, and it fires away. And that is, dopamine is responsible for learning, unlearning, managing stress. It is also responsible for forming addictions and some mental illnesses and hyperexcitability. What serotonin does is it goes up, as we see, up to the age of 11 years, it goes up along with dopamine and almost counters it to a bit. So it reduces the excitability of nerve cells so that they don't fire off every time dopamine asks them to. But what happens in the adolescent years is that the dopamine goes into a surge. And that is a neurochemical event, that is designed by nature, as I said earlier, to help the young people take some high risk decisions with poor judgment and find their peers, find their new community, discover themselves, find what they like, what they don't like, step out into the world. But dopamine does reduce our ability to function optimally. And these high-risk decisions with poor judgment can sometimes cost us a lot, And so therefore, that is why it is important to be aware that this happens. And in this time period, 11 years to 20 years, this is also the time when most mental illnesses manifest. This is when anxiety, depression, bipolar, schizophrenia, drug addictions, alcohol addiction, all of these present themselves mostly. And lots of them go undiagnosed because the adolescent behavior is confusing for everyone in the household, even for the young person themselves. It's confusing. It's like, what's happening? What's happening to me? Is this normal? Going to bed very late, getting out of bed very late, eating funny, all these things are almost normal behavior. So they can, and if there is an underlying illness, it can pass off as normal teenage behavior. So that's why we need to look out for these things even more. So science has proven that staying emotionally connected with somebody and feeling understood by somebody is protective. It raises your self-esteem and self-confidence. Therefore, rather than isolating yourself, it is important that you stay connected. Stay connected. Even if you go to university, stay connected with your school friends, maybe your teachers, some of your teachers who you get on with, maybe some of the uncles and aunts and grandparents, parents, siblings, pets. Stay in touch, stay connected. So what do well people look like? So they have a holistic, they develop in all areas, not just academic, but their social, emotional, spiritual. They have their relationships, they're able to initiate, develop, sustain, and end relationships in a healthy way. It's good for us to know, it's healthy to know that this relationship is not good for me and end it. Healthy people do that. Use your me time well. These days, do you think we have much solitude? No, because our mobile phone is always with us. We are hardly ever alone. But actually being able to enjoy your own company and being content with that is, it's not it's not loneliness, it is actually solitude. Enjoying the time that you have by yourself, having empathy for others, playing and learning, and knowing right from wrong, and dealing with setbacks. We all have setbacks. But what happens sometimes is that, you know, the society sort of makes us feel like we are grown up at 18. You know, it labels you adults and says, now you're off you go to university, you're on your own, okay? And we can get ourselves, but we know now physiologically that we are not fully, our brain is not fully developed till we are 25. And we can find ourselves in a very lost space, because you're like, your brain doesn't have the ability, but the society expects you to get on with it. And it's hard, right? So it's important that we know that when we have setbacks, we don't have to rely just on ourselves. We can consult others, we can get help, we can take time to think about it, we can take a break from academics, we can take a few months out, sort out whatever it is, and then come back. You know, what sometimes happens is that we develop this only one way of looking at something, and it takes a conversation with another person to actually go from a tunnel vision to helicopter vision, you know, see the bigger picture. Sometimes we lose the ability when a setback comes. We think, oh my God, this is it. You know, this is the end of things. But very rarely is it that, be it an end of a relationship, be it a exam failure, whatever it is, you know, be it a health problem, whatever it is, there's often a solution that can be arrived at with the help of supportive friends and family. Oh, this wants to come back. So we are never, you know, well or unwell. We are all on a continuum. Just like with physical health and with mental health, with both, we can be ill or we can be thriving, absolutely, and everything in the middle, you know, and none of it is right or wrong. What is important is we identify, we remember this continuum and say, am I on the right side, on the green side, or am I actually drifting to the left side? What's happening with me? And that solitude time is important. We can use it well to actually look at ourselves and say, how am I doing? How am I within myself? Like we ask our friends, how are you? Every now and then to stop and ask yourself, how am I today? How am I doing? Yeah. And know and try and see, where am I on this spectrum? Am I growing? Am I learning? Am I living to my full potential? Am I more aware than I was? Or am I actually suffering? Am I feeling low more than I should be? Are my feelings getting in the way of my day-to-day life? Are they getting in the way of my relationships? Asking those questions, being self-aware. So this is a Maslow's triangle. There is no evidence for it, but this was proposed by Maslow many years ago, and it has sort of in psychology become quite a landmark thing and quite a benchmark for people to come back to when they think about what we need. What do we need as human beings? So let's start from the bottom up. So what we need is physical health. We need food, water, sleep, shelter, good physical health. So when you go to university, you know, if you have a physical illness, remember to take your medications, simple things like that. Make sure that you register with the GP there so that you can continue your treatment there. Make sure that, you know, you think about how the food is going to be. If you know, my son used to always say the food at Durham, he went to St. Aidan's, and in the first year, he just always complained about the food. So for Christmas, we bought him a mini fridge, and he had recipe books, and he could rustle up little meals for himself. So identify the problem and address it in terms of physical needs. Then emotional well-being, stay, like I said, maintain appropriate emotional responses. Take time, take a pause before you respond to something. Think about it, talk about it to somebody you trust. Love and belonging, it can sometimes be a huge change, I'm sure. I mean, for me, it was. I was very young, as many people are when they go to university, and completely thrown strangers, and all of them are so bright. I thought I was bright, and everybody there was so bright, and I was like shrouded in insecurity. I said, oh my God, I'm not going to. It was medical school, so obviously it was very intimidating to be there. But then I made some friends, and a lot of people say have compassion for yourself, but what does that actually mean? Having compassion for yourself, be kind to yourself. Yeah. Firstly, acknowledge that this is a difficult time for me, right? Secondly, don't isolate yourself. Don't feel alone, because you may be physically alone there, but actually there are many, many, many people who care for you. Check in, parents, in an ideal world, parents and universities would check in with you routinely, but that doesn't happen at university, because it's not like school. In school, if you don't show up to school 2-3 lessons in a go, somebody will notice it and raise it. Whereas in university, you are an adult learner. You are expected to take responsibility for your learning, and you may not show up to a lesson for a month and nobody might notice. So it is for you to make sure that you have the tools and the ability to recognize that, why I haven't been going to lectures, and, nobody is going to notice. And so I better sort of keep this in my awareness that I'm maybe not okay. My performance is dropping, and maybe that's because I am missing home too much, or maybe I'm drinking too much, and maybe I'm having money problems, and that's distracting me too much, and I'm not able to focus. And maybe I'm missing my girlfriend, So recognize that all these things will be happening. And the other way of being kind to yourself is to remove yourself from a situation that's not good for you. To say that, actually recognize what is not good for you, whatever it is. It may be a person or a situation, or a subject that you picked a subject for uni and you don't like it, and you're like, I really don't like this subject, and you might want to change it. It's much better to do it earlier than later. So just thinking about those things and knowing that you have choices. There are always choices. We can always find a way forward. So love and belonging are very fundamental needs of every human being. Recognition for your hard work, and self-actualization is nothing but just living to your full potential. It's just a big word for that. So this, as we said, adolescence is a big time of change. Moving from home to university, at home where your food and laundry and your mattress and pillows and bed linen and everything was looked after. And then you go to university where money, your hours, like mom at home might say that, you have to be back by midnight or whatever, 2 o'clock. And in university, no such rules. You can stay out for as long as you like, and, a lot of freedom. So all these changes. And but they also, every change is a loss also. While you might have gained freedom in university, you might lose structure. Yeah? And just to have compassion for yourself and know that lots is going on right now, but not let that overwhelm you. Just recognize it, acknowledge it, that yes, okay, it's happening, and we'll get through it. Lots and lots of thousands of people do. So you will too. So what are the changes? We talked about some of them. Physical changes. Emotionally, you might be expected to be more self-reliant. Socially, of course, your demands, the peer pressure will be different. You might feel academically challenged. You might feel that you have to drink a lot, even if you don't like to. You're expected to drink a lot, or go out a lot, or be in situations that normally you wouldn't be. So all of these changes might be quite challenging. Uh, uh, as a doctor, I can say that if people drank less, NHS would save 1/3 of its money. But and also these are medical facts. I mean, I'm not making this up. That it is very it is the alcohol is a drug with social sanction. We say, oh no, we shouldn't have drugs, but alcohol is also a drug. But when it comes to alcohol, it's like, oh, let's see who gets sozzled more than the other. Our attitudes, our social attitudes to alcohol are very, very different from other drugs. But what alcohol is a depressant. And that is why you feel like rubbish the next day. It saps you of a lot of energy and time and money. And at the end of the day, it disturbs the delicate balance of the neurochemicals in the brain. Like we said earlier, that the brain is a very complex and delicate organ. And in moderation, alcohol is okay. You're young, your liver works well, you can handle it. But in excess, alcohol can seriously cause imbalance in the brain. The other thing it does is it affects your thoughts and feelings and actions. You may do things under the influence of alcohol which you would never ever do if you were not drunk. And when I say you, I don't mean you personally. I mean one. And it can mask, it can be an unhealthy coping mechanism. It might be that this drinking is the only way that you can cope with your depression and anxiety. That's the only time you feel good about yourself. And recognize that if that's happening. It is an addictive substance, your body becomes tolerant, and then you have to keep drinking more and more to have the same effect like you had before. So it's like a downward spiral, and it doesn't get any better as you get older. It only gets worse. So it can also result in long-term heavy use into a serious mental illness. So, and of course, it has a knock-on effect on the family and friends and your other relationships. So it's worth talking about alcohol because these are your formative years. Things that you do now, the decisions you make now are going to carry with you for a long time to come. And of course, with this, in the same vein, I would talk about, I can't really go into all the other drugs, but you know that using drugs is not the best thing for your brain. And exams, the study drugs and stimulants, they are damaging in the long run. So I would not recommend them. Know that you have the ability to do your exams. You've done them all your life. You'll be fine, and get the support you need in other ways. So what can we do to really be aware and proactive about keeping a good mental health for ourselves and our friends also, not just yourself, your community, your friends. First thing is notice, look at people, look at yourself, like I said, and notice what's going on. Has your behavior changed? Have your likes and dislikes changed? What's happening? I'm just going to turn this page 1 second. So notice your feelings, pay attention to them, name them. What am I feeling? Am I feeling frustrated, lonely, excited, happy, free, exasperated, overwhelmed? Name them. If it helps, write them down, journal them, talk about them to people you can safely, explore them, see what is going on with me, and recognize that there are other, most of us go around pretending like we're fine. So what is the automatic thing? How are you? I'm good, thank you. You? Right? How automatic that is. Let it not be automatic. How am I? How am I? Find the answer. Notice what's happening with you. Notice in others. If you notice a change in behavior, talk to them. Say, are you all right? What's happening? Tell me. Yeah. And don't feel the need to pretend. Because we all have ups and downs. That's just part of being human. It's all right. Not every day is going to be a fantastic day. We all have down days, and that's fine. So first thing is to do is to notice what's going on. Second is to ask, explore, say, it is difficult, okay? It's very difficult to actually ask yourself, what's really going on with me? Or ask somebody, what's going on with you? Because you don't know what might come back. And you don't know how you might deal with it. But it is difficult, but I think it's worth doing. So notice if there's something different about you or your friends. Ask, explore the feelings that might be coming up, however difficult it might be. But I think sometimes it takes a little bit of courage, but I think it's good. Especially watch out for warning signs. If somebody is really withdrawn, if they're really hopeless, if they feel, I don't see the point in this. I don't think I can make it. This is too much for me. Explore that and say, what are they actually saying? If they say, I'm a real failure, I'm a burden on my parents, I think the world would be better off without me. If they're saying things like that, notice it and don't ignore it. And don't refute it. Say, tell me more. Tell me more. Ask. Tell me more. Why? How? Where do these feelings come from? What's happening? So ask. Notice. Ask. You're allowed to feel homesick. Laura is a student who has written this. That it's okay to feel homesick and lonely. It's normal. You're expected to. It's all right. Part of the process. So when you notice and ask for the warning signs, like I mentioned, hopelessness, worthlessness, burdensomeness. Yeah? We talked about some internal coping strategy. We'll talk some more. And recognizing your own strengths, ability to cope with it, identifying the people who can help you and the activities that can help you. These are the three main things. And remembering that your life is worth living. Remembering what is most important to me and worth living for. It may be your mother or your cat or your future dreams, whatever it is. But remembering that it's worth it. Your life is worthy. And so you've noticed, you've asked, and then whatever you get in reply when you ask, listen to that. We've been given 2 ears and 1 mouth. So we listen twice as much as we speak and respond appropriately. We'll expand on all of these. So like cancer, like diabetes, like heart disease, the earlier we identify that there is a problem, the better we can treat it or deal with it, because we understand it more, we recognize things, we recognize patterns of behavior, we recognize what works, what doesn't work. But intervening early is important. It's the most important thing, right? Because like cancer, just like cancer, the earlier it is diagnosed, the more treatable it is. And that goes for every illness. And it doesn't even have to be illness. It may be just a small problem which has become huge in your own mind, just because you've kept it to yourself and not shared it with anybody. So what is needed is support and information. There is loads of support out there and information. There is no blame attached with difficulties. Everyone has difficulties. And keeping hope alive for full recovery, getting the help that you need and the information. And I'll come to that more. So internal coping strategies we talked about, which we all know: exercise, journaling, forming your own communities, cooking together, cooking meals together, doing, playing music with a band, maintaining, creating friendships, meaningful relationships, not just superficial, but meaningful relationships which have some depth. Eating well, drinking lots of water, and staying connected with people. Other supports, as you know, all of these, we will talk about some charities and books and apps and websites. And, apps, and now with the internet being so full of such rich information, if you find it difficult to talk to somebody, you can actually use apps and websites as an intermediary. Nowadays, I will share some of those things with you. And stay connected with what's going on back home, with people, make plans, have something to look forward to, and know that, we care for so many people, but we don't go around telling them, hey, I really love you, I love you so much. We don't do that, right? we don't do that. So even when we are sitting alone in our rooms at 11 o'clock at night feeling rubbish, we forget that there are lots of people out there who love us deeply, just because our physical reality tells us we are alone. Yeah. So remember that there are people out there who love you deeply, but they don't go around telling you the whole time. Even if they are busy, even if they're nasty, even if they're, really annoying, but they might still love you very deeply. So we've talked about notice, ask, respond, and listen. So so one thing I would ask you to do is research the support that is available at the university at which you're going. So the demand for mental health support has gone up hugely in the last few months. I mean, social media is a constant platform for comparison, and there's a part of me that believes that has huge lot to do with this mental health crisis in the young people, because they're constantly comparing themselves with other people, forgetting that every life is unique, and you have your own path, and you will find your own destiny, and through just being honest to who you are. You don't have to compare yourself with anybody else. So studentsspace.org.uk has lots of very good resources. It has lovely videos, and they also have a web chat. So if you don't like to talk to somebody, I think they have a web chat from 4 to 11 p.m. every day. So that's a very useful resource. So find out before you go there, find out what's available at your university. Have a list of people you trust, people you can call, put them on your speed dial. That, okay, these are the people I can call, people you trust. Student welfare officers and tutors, you can talk to them. University counseling services are they don't have as much capacity as they could. Ideally, we should have walk-in centers where you can just walk in and get to talk to somebody, but that's very difficult. Getting access to a GP is difficult, but all these things are there for you. In an emergency, you can talk. You can even call 999 or Samaritans or Papyrus, and I'll come to those. But, talk to somebody. Don't wait till you reach a crisis point. Even if you're having some turmoil, just pick up the phone and call. Papyrus, for instance, they have a free phone line. That is a charity for young people. They are designed. So if you are under 35 years of age, the largest cause of death under 35 years of age is suicide. So you are the biggest risk to yourself if you are under 35 years of age. Therefore, it's important that you understand that you need to have compassion for yourself. You need to be kind to yourself. Illnesses happen, failures happen, relationship breakdowns happen, but that does not mean life ends. And if you need to talk to somebody, just pick up the phone and talk. Talk to a stranger on the phone, and they will help you see life through a different lens. And there are text services, so you don't have to talk even. You can text, you can email. Nightline is particularly good, but not all universities have it. But especially at night, if you can feel really down, you can actually contact them. And of course, there are dedicated charities to particular mental illnesses. Calm is for men exclusively, because male suicides are 3 times higher than female suicides. But the female suicides are on the rise. So we need to watch out for ourselves. There are so many, all these people are there to help you. So take their help when you need it. So this is Papyrus again. So they have a phone line, they have a text line, and they have an email. So whatever works for you, do that. We try and, so I'm a trustee of Papyrus, and we are always looking out for ways in which we can reach young people and make it easier for them to reach us, whatever works. Kuth is another one that is an online emotional well-being and mental health support body. There is private affordable online counseling is available at a place called BetterHelp. So Louisa, I'd be happy for you to share these slides with people if they want, or the list of resources, whatever you like, but please use these services. Books, different books work for different people, but these 2 I've read and they're beautiful. And apps. Wisa is a artificial intelligence bot that is like having a WhatsApp conversation with a clinical psychologist. So you can say what you want and they will respond based on evidence-based practice. So Wisa is a beautiful app. I have it on my phone. I have Headspace, which teaches you to meditate and helps you with insomnia. Stay Alive is a beautiful app, which is a suicide prevention app, but it is actually a healthy living app. I don't think we can talk about mental illness and well-being without talking about suicide prevention, because ultimately that's what we want. We want people to be more self-aware and be able to ask for help easily. So at the far end of the spectrum, you might need professional help, like we said, with psychologists, psychiatrists, and therapists. So sadly, there are many sad stories from universities. There are many students who do not get to complete their degree because something happens halfway down. So Ted was at, I don't know the whole story, but he was an excellent sportsman, but he died by suicide, and this charity was set up in his name, and they now promote mental health in his university through sport. And that is a big way of doing it. This is another young man who died, and Bristol was in the news for all the wrong reasons. A few years ago, if you remember, there were multiple suicides in Bristol, and then Papyrus actually lobbied with the universities, and we said we should, the big problem was confidentiality. So these young people, the universities knew that they were not doing well, but in the name of confidentiality, they were not sharing that information with the parents. And the parents believed that if they knew, they would have been able to help the child, but they were denied that opportunity. So now they have an opt-in option. So at admission, they ask you, would you like to inform your family or not if you have mental health issues at university? And you can either opt in or not. But majority of the students do opt in, because the majority of the students do come from loving homes, and they know that if they're in trouble, they will get the help they need, and they'll be able to ask for it. This is my son. His name is Sagar. He went to Dulwich College actually, and finished schooling in 2012. Went to Durham. Straight A's, excellent drummer, cricketer, everything. Brilliant, sweet, sweet, sweet boy, and many friends. Very popular, loved by so many. And he was after his second year at Durham University, he came home, and he was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and which was very poorly managed, sadly, by my own colleagues. And he sadly ended his own life at the age of 20. And and I learned so much from his death. I don't think it had anything to do with his university. I think it was just so many different things. I mean, suicide is a very complex thing. It's very hard to say why it happened, but it happened, and it shouldn't happen to anybody. So my key messages are: firstly, have fun. Okay, enjoy yourself. These are the best years of your life. And second is stay connected. Talk to people. Know that they care for you. And third is ask for help. Ask for help. It's a smart thing to do. I know it's difficult, but find a way. Find the right platform. Find the right people. Talk to them. I have given you a whole long list of people you can talk to. Talk to somebody. Okay. And remember all these things. Start from the bottom. Look after all your physical needs. Make sure you have a good mattress. You get good sleep. Right from there, right up to just living up to your full potential. So we've accomplished, I hope, 3 objectives today: that you have a better understanding of the adolescence, what it is, the changes that you might face, and the strategies for coping with them. Questions, please. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for being here on such a beautiful evening. Thank you. So there are quite a few articles, and there was this afternoon, there was on Money Box on Radio 4, there was a program on managing money issues at university. And of course, many students don't know how to make a budget. And so learn how to make a budget, live within your means. If you can't live within your means, then get a part-time job, and then expand your budget, and then still live within your means. I think there is no other better advice than live within your means, but know that there is help available. I think the student funding units are very helpful if you find yourself in difficulty. Apparently, a survey has shown that 7 out of 10 students find themselves in financial difficulties at university, and that costs them their peace of mind, which affects their studies and their relationships, their sleep, and that's really damaging. So if you have money issues, talk to the student funding unit, and of course talk to think about getting bursaries or grants, and or a part-time job. There are tutoring jobs are particularly good for students because they already are at university, so they have the knowledge, and they're good jobs because they are skilled and they pay more than, they can pay up to 25 to 40 pounds an hour. Any questions?
This is Jill here. I'm just looking in the chat box. We have, thank you so much for sharing so much wise counsel tonight. We have walked through some dark times, and my daughter has just started at college. Thank you very much for this talk and for sharing your experience. So there are no questions in here yet, but there are warm messages for you, Sangeeta.
Thank you. I think parents feel quite helpless when the children grow up and they don't, they want to do their own thing, and you want to respect that. But it's also, it's very hard actually. Yeah.
And there's another one's come in. I'm aware that we have other hurdles to come. It's so good that mental health is being talked about so much more.
I fully agree with you.
Mm.
I think it's really good that this conversation is growing. And, when my son was ill, it was non-existent really. And I really feel, I wish there was no community, there was no platform to open up this conversation. And being immigrant families, it was even harder because, there was nobody here who knew us for many, many years. They didn't know us, and we didn't. I worked full time, and so there were lots of barriers. But I'm glad this is of some use to you. But know that I think the main thing to remember is knowing that we are not alone, and asking for help early. You don't have to reach a crisis point to ask for help. Ask early, and I think what people need are friends and listeners, and not judges. The moment we judge somebody, we lose them. And mental illness is so easily judged because it manifests as behavior.
I couldn't agree more, Sangeeta. My son is 32 now. He had severe mental health problems for 10 years, and it was very, very difficult to break through that barrier and talk. But the minute that he started to talk about it, started to share it with, that was part of his journey back to health. I couldn't agree more.
Yes.
There's a question here. Can I share this information with my friends, or can I share the video later?
It will be on the Bell House YouTube, so you can just direct them to the link. We'll put that up later. It should be up in the next couple of days.
My daughter's own ability to talk so openly has helped me to feel more comfortable that it wasn't my fault, or that I didn't do enough. And yes, I think that's a terrific point.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I think it's really so important. I think it's harder for us as the older generation to talk about it. I think younger people find it almost easier. It's interesting, and we can learn so much from them. But also, it's a two-way stream, isn't it?
Yeah, I definitely feel like with my generation, it's getting a lot more kind of, people are becoming like more aware of it and kind of more comfortable just like talking to their friends about mental health, which I think is really good. Like obviously there's still some stigma, but I think it's definitely improved like recently.
Yeah, stigma is really discrimination, isn't it? That's what it is. It's a human rights issue, because they just because people have a mental illness, they should still be treated with dignity and respect, and we forget that. And our media often portrays people with mental illness with such lack of empathy, either as comedians or as criminals. There's nothing in between. They never talk, it's always dramatic sensationalization of mental health. It's never an empathic, compassionate portrayal. And that's been happening for decades. It's very hard to reverse that. But I think that's the next stage. We have to raise it as a human rights issue.
Yes. Yes. And it's just as much an illness. It's not the person's fault any more than it is the diabetic's fault that they have diabetes, or someone who breaks their leg. That's not their fault. Someone who has a disease or an illness that people can see and understand. That's not, it is exactly the same situation, except that it's hidden. It's very often it's so hidden.
And we become so good at pretending.
Mm.
I know I have walked around hospital corridors pretending to be this absolutely calm and contained, very well trained professional, when inside I'm absolutely falling apart.
Mm.
We do that. It's a survival thing. I have to do it. I need my job. I have done it. I don't say I'm guilty, but that's what is expected of you, and that's what you do. Just show up. Ignoring how you feel, and ignoring and not having the courage to sit with your feelings and say, actually, I need to do something about this. So thank you very much for listening. I'm aware of the time. And thank you for inviting me to speak. It's a real honor for me to be able to share Sagar with you. He was an absolute delight.
Yeah, thank you so much for that really powerful talk. I think it will be really, really beneficial to everyone listening, everyone who listens to the recording later. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us. And please do check out the recording of yesterday's talk, which was about going to uni from an underrepresented background. It was really, really great, and there was lots of great tips. So please do check out that recording as well. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. I hope you found, or I'm sure you found the talk really helpful. Yeah, so thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.